All right, we are here. We are live. It is Wednesday morning, and it's not very often you get to see two vampires in the daylight. But we're going to do it today. We're going to do it right now. I got to tell you, I am so freaking excited for this interview. So stoked, and I've been waiting a long time to pull this one off. He is the OG voice of Saliva. He's back, and he's going to show you why he's the OG, everybody. He is the outlaw himself, Josie Scott. Dude, welcome.
What's
Welcome back. First, not even welcome to the show. Screw that. Welcome back.
man? Thank you for having me. As excited as you are to do this show too, with your wrestling history and all that good stuff, man. That's super dope. I'm all about it.
Look at that. Yeah, Josie was starting to interview me before we went live. So who knows how this is going to go. Dude, I got to tell you, like, there's so much I want to talk to you about. I mean, no BS. Like your music, I remember the first time I saw Saliva, Your Disease, the video come on MTV. It was like in the middle of the day. I remember sitting on my couch, and back when MTV was still known to play music videos from time to time, Your Disease came on, and I was like, "Oh shit, what is this? This is what I'm talking about. This is how." All right, I'm like, I felt good, because that was a time in music like rock and roll was starting to be on the decline. It wasn't getting that mainstream love, and I was like, "Oh yeah, here we go, here we go."
Yeah,
Then when Click Click Boom came on, forget it, mind blown. 20 years later, I'll play that song every freaking day and still feel like a kid in a candy store, and it still gets my blood pumping, heart going, and just juices flowing like the first time I heard it.
man. Thank you. That's a beautiful compliment. Thank you very, very much. All you can wish for your songs is that they have some type of shelf life, as they say,
Yeah.
and I'm just so grateful and thankful for that. That's a very amazing and rare accomplishment. And I'm just as surprised as anybody else that it's one of my songs.
Well, how about that? Like, how was that for you? When Your Disease starts getting played on MTV, it's like, all right, we're a bunch of guys from Memphis playing some good old rock and roll, and now we're like nationwide on TV.
Yeah, it happened. I remember the moment it happened because we were on tour doing like the outdoor festivals in the year, I believe it was 2000. And um, they were, we had gotten a song, we had gotten Your Disease on I think the Dracula 2000 soundtrack, which I was really proud of because I'm a big Dracula fan. But
That whole vampire
uh,
thing.
yeah, man, we were touring, like I said, those outdoor festivals, and we played Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we were used to just going out into the general population and grabbing a hot dog or grabbing a margarita or something like that.
Sure.
I asked Chris DeBaldo, the guitar player at the time. I said, "Hey man, you want to go grab a drink and maybe some funnel cakes or something?" And he was like, "Sure." So we proceeded to leave the vehicle we were in. We didn't even have a bus yet. I think we still had an RV. And we were just blown away by that because we've always been in a van and trailer, for
Right.
since the early '90s. Because me and Chris were actually in another band together called Blackbone. So we walked up to the gate and we went through, and I'll never forget the sound of people going. And dude, we were standing in line for, I think, like I said, a margarita or a hot dog. I can't remember which one. And just whoom, all the fans just
Wow.
closed in, man. And we were happily stuck there for 2 hours. just
Wow.
signing things and taking pictures of people. And I remember telling Chris when we walked back behind the gate, I said, stuff is about to get real, dude. Stuff's about to change, man, and it's
Yeah.
never gonna. I said there ain't no going back, bro. You know what I mean?
Well, isn't
And
that like a scary
that was
moment too? Because I mean,
it's terrifying.
sure, sure. Like I mean, yourself, like millions of people have tried to go for that moment, but the few that cross over and get there, like you did, it's like when reality hits you, that's got to be terrifying.
Yeah, dude, we were such country bumpkins that we literally pulled our van pulled up in front of the WWE club when they had that on
Right.
in Memphis, or I'm sorry, in New York City
Yeah.
on Times Square, and
Yeah.
we pulled up and jumped out of the van, and everybody in line screamed so loud, and we literally all five of us turned around to see who they were screaming at because we thought, Jay-Z or somebody like that walked up, but they were screaming because of us. We just were not used to that kind of attention, and it just happened like that, man. It was like it was nighttime, and then poof, it was daytime, dude. Just
Wow.
just like that, like flipping a switch on.
How does your life change though? I mean, uh, being in the public eye now and just like we talked, I had a very tiny minute taste of it with wrestling, and it is scary and terrifying because all of a sudden anything you want is just like, here you go. uh,
Yeah,
it's literally sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and it's just like, is this real? Is this really real?
yeah. Well, I wish there was a college type course
Mhm.
that new artists had to go through, and they kind of did do that at Island Def Jam. They put us through this what they called press training,
Okay.
and I'm naturally a rebellious spirit, man. So I was telling the guys in the van on the way over, I was like, man, take this BS with a grain of salt, man. This is gonna be some bull. And so we went and sat with this lady, and she just walked in and quietly put on an interview of Britney Spears, and she let it play for about 2 minutes, and then she turned it off, and she said, "Gentlemen, did anybody pay attention to the question Britney was just asked?" And the question she was asked was, "Are you still a virgin?" And what she was pointing out to us is Britney beautifully answered the question and went all the way around the horn, man, but never answered the
Hmm.
question.
Hmm.
And when that happened, I got my notebook out, and I was like, let me take some notes. Because
Ah,
she was dropping. I had it all wrong. I mean, as I usually do, I had it all wrong, and she was dropping some knowledge, dude. She was
wow.
dropping some knowledge, babe, like over and over again. Just things like she taught us how to breathe. She taught us how to like even if you're nervous and sometimes I'll have a full-blown panic attack. She taught us how to walk through that even
Wow.
if the cameras were on us, and it'd be different if the stuff she said didn't work, but the stuff she said to do worked every time, bro. Every time, like the breathing exercises and the thoughtful way to listen and answer a question, um, to listen to cues about someone's life and uh, where you are and
Right.
what teams are in that city and just all kinds of stuff, man. That I just never imagined would come out of that meeting. But to go even further, I wish that course would have gone a little deeper, and, told us about money,
Yeah.
told us about you know, how to that money is a tool. It's
Mm-hmm.
not. It's not just because we were like, oh hell, I'm about to make it rain up in here. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
we literally went from being five dirt poor Memphis boys, and me personally, I didn't even have a high school diploma until 2012, and we just had, when somebody dumps, let's call it $100,000 in your lap, and you've never had money before, I went hog freaking wild, bro. Hog wild,
I can
man.
imagine. I can imagine.
And like you said, just like that, everything is dropped in your lap, and here come girls, here come, you know, drugs and alcohol, and
Mhm.
all the accoutrement of fame. And I wish there was a course. The 25-year-old me would have scoffed at things like this, but the 50 me,
Oh no, 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 no. Where'd you go?
I'm
There we go.
sorry.
There we go.
Um, I, looking the 50-year-old me looking back, I want to let these kids know that you know this is what's coming,
Hmm.
and this is what you need to be prepared for, because it's gonna come hard and it's gonna come fast, and it can be very. It's just like a train, babe. It's just like a train.
Yeah.
It's coming, and it's gonna blow anything in its way out of the way, and there ain't gonna be nothing but arms and legs left over. And I just wish there was something to teach young entertainers that are about to go from the fire to the frying pan, uh, a little more extensively, not
Yeah.
just about press, but how to deal with fame, how to deal with money, how to deal with pressure, and all these
Mhm.
different things.
It is so scary too. Like, I mean, even just the smaller part of it, like what you said with the interviews, um, how many people really
I lost you,
don't.
buddy.
Oh no,
I lost the sound.
no, 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 no. You can't hear me? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah,
Can you hear me? I
yeah.
can't hear you for some reason.
Uh, Go back and come back on.
Let's see.
Let me see. Hold on.
Are you saying leave and come back?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You said okay. All right, let me try that.
All right, everybody, hang tight. We're gonna get this squared away. This is so interesting. Like, I I'm surprised actually they even gave that course on interviews. I didn't even think they did that. So that's pretty impressive and pretty you know. But it is so important. All these other things they should teach because, like you said, when these struggling artists who are like dirt poor all of a sudden get into this opportunity and they're making all this money and all the fame and things, the fruits of fame that come with it. It's such a scary, scary thing. So let's see. And can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. So sorry, man. I'm so
That's all
sorry.
right. That's all right. So, look at that. You kept telling me, hey, you're not even a tech guy, and we got it fixed on the first shot. So, as Saliva then is rising up and you're getting ready to now to do the next album, then you find yourself writing with like Nikki Six, like
Yeah,
I mean,
idol.
yeah, like something like that is you're like, all right, like now how the hell did I get here?
Yeah, he's always been. He was like it was between Dracula, Elvis, and Nikki Six. I mean, that was and like growing up watching Memphis wrestling. You know, when I was growing up, there was three kings. There was Jesus, the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley,
And
and
Jerry
Jerry
Lawler.
Lawler. So
uh,
uh, yeah, just man, it was kind of surreal. You know what I mean? Um, Nikki came to see me one time, and I literally had to say to him, I said, "Man, if I stare at you, please don't think I'm weird or something, because I'm a pretty shy guy, and uh, I'm kind of, you know, uh, I'm just kind of nerdy when it comes to social situations, and
okay.
sometimes I don't know how to react to beautiful people.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, and meeting Nikki Sixx was no exception, man. Uh, just a total idol of mine from back in the day, and now. You know what I mean? His whole life, his sobriety and the struggles he'd had with fame and drugs and alcohol and
Sure.
money and different things, and getting the chance to sort of pull the curtain back and look at his life in that kind of way. um, he cared about me, you know what I mean, enough to teach me those things. That was very surreal. And to get to write a song, uh, or to get to do a song that he and his partner uh, uh, wrote together, was just like, I can't even. And then he came and did the video, and
Right.
I was really tripping then. He brought his 57 Chevy up and parked on the set of the video, and then they did some shots with me and him in his car. And he was just couldn't have been more giving and kind and sweet, and a just a wonderful, wonderful human being, man. A beautiful soul.
That's awesome. Now, one thing too, like that happens with your career is, you know, eh, like with the Nikki Six thing. Then you're probably realizing like, all right, we blew up on the first album. Now we're writing with Nikki Six, so we're blowing up even
Uh-huh.
more. And then you start getting like, and you mentioned with the Dracula soundtrack. Then you start getting involved with movie soundtracks, which is a huge, huge thing. Then the big thing happens with you with the Hero song with Chad and the Nickelback guys. Um, which, and I'm gonna, as much as I love Click Click Boom and all the other things you've done and Always and everything, from the moment I heard that song, and there's a, not a lot of songs I'll say this about, and I'll say that that's a perfect fucking song. You know what I mean? Like there's songs you hear, you're
Wow.
just like, it's just it. It's got that fucking perfect thing, and you can feel it, and it's just like wow, wow. I mean, from the
Yeah.
moment I heard it, I was
Thank
like,
you.
wow.
Thank you so much, man. That means a lot, uh, to me. That's a really special song. I think it came along at a really ironic time, um, and like you said, just beautifully worded and uh, carefully written, and beautiful harmonies, and
Mhm.
all the things that made me love music in the first place was. Um, a killer intro,
Mhm.
getting into it in a killer way, and then beautiful, beautiful verses that are
Mhm.
simplistic and gorgeous, and then beautiful, explosive harmonies when
Yes.
it comes to the hook and the chorus, um, and taking people, because I believe music is medicine, man, and that song was medicine to a lot of people, and it's like taking them on a roller coaster type journey with that song. Um, and I just couldn't have been luckier and more blessed to have that put together. Leor Cohen actually put that together, the CEO at the time of Island Def Jam. He
Okay.
put all that together, and um, just an amazing an amazing idea, uh, and then like I said, I was so lucky and blessed to be a part of it because he got a hold of Chad Kroger, and then he called me and wanted me to do that with Chad Kroger. So, or Kruger, sorry. And I was like, I'm down for whatever. And we went up to Canada, and at first Chad wanted to do sort of a spin-off like of Click Click or a Click Click Boom type song. He wanted to do a heavier sort of rap rock sort of thing, and I was like, I was kind of in my artist feelings at the time, and I was like, man, I don't really want to do that again. I was like, I've done that, and I want to do something else. I want to take people over here, and then I want to take them over here, and you know what I mean? I want to have the freedom to go different places. So we sat down, and he goes, well, I got this idea, and it's really not, the guys don't think it's a Nickelback song. And I was like, well, let's hear it. You know what I mean? And then we started he played it, the lion's share of the idea, and I was just like, wow. And so we started arranging things and nipping and tucking here and there. And then I'll never forget, I turned and yelled out the room. I was like yelling for my A&R guy at the time, Rob Stevenson. I was like, Rob, get in here, man. You got to hear this, dude. So Rob Stevenson ran in, and we played it again for him, and I sang harmonies with Chad. And then everything happened real fast. We recorded the demo of it. We went in the studio and recorded the actual song. And I remember Matt Cameron from Soundgarden. He's in Pearl Jam now. He came down and played drums on the song, and it was just so wicked to watch him work because he was such a pro, man. And it was such a learning experience for me because I started out as a drummer and moved on to being a singer. I played drums with my dad in church since I was about 5 years old. And then I moved on to figuring out I could sing when I was about 9 years old.
Wow. Okay.
And so I actually had played drums 4 years longer than I'd been singing. And to watch this older guy came in, and he was putting Matt Cameron's drums together, and I went over and spoke to the man, and it was just me and him in the studio. It was early in the morning, and had just an awesome conversation with him. And then when people started arriving, I went back in the studio, and I was like, man, who is that cat out there? They said, oh, that's Matt Cameron's drum roadie. And I was like, oh, cool. I was like, what's his name? And they're like, oh, that's Mr. Slingerland. I was like, he was putting together Slingerland drums, and Mr. Slingerland himself was out there putting his drums together. So I was like, oh my God, mind blown. So, and then, like I said, Matt comes in. He was really funny and very kind and just really involved. And I watched him. He said, play it for me. And he listened to the track, and he said, play it for me again. And he listened to the track again. He said, one more time. He listened to it again. And then they went into the studio and sat down and recorded the whole, like the entire song. Like no, he did not punch in, nothing. Played it from front to back 3 times and did not stop. And then he was, and then he goes, all right, I'm done. That's it. I'm done. And we were just like, all of us were just sitting there with our jaws on the floor. Cause it was some of the best, most tasteful drum playing I'd ever seen with my own eyes, like up close, like 6 feet from him.
It probably took Mr. Slingerland longer to set up than it did for him to record the track.
Oh, absolutely. Totally, bro. Totally.
That's so crazy. That is so crazy. Now, that song brought upon for me, I felt was now I'm a huge been a Howard Stern fan from since he invaded Philly in 87, 88. Um, the moment that you went and sang in front of the American Idol judges, and then they said you were somebody else. They didn't, a person trying to get on the show, and you sang
Yeah.
that song, and then Howard's just like, all right, well, you guys got it wrong because that's the guy that helped write the song, and it sold millions of copies, and he's got the #1 song on Billboard right now.
Yeah, man, that was that was another really cool, trippy day because one of my favorite comedians, probably of all time, my favorite comedian of all time is Dave Chappelle, hands down, uh, best comedian I've ever seen, and uh, he was coming down the elevator when we got on to go up to Howard Stern. He was coming out, and I was like, like I was just like, this is not happening, because like it was Nikki Sixx sized for me
Right,
to see
right.
Dave Chappelle, and he's got a cigarette in his hand. He's like, "What's up, fellas? What's going on?" And he just steps off the elevator, and I'm just like jaw on the floor. So I got on the elevator and went up, and Howard and Robin could not have been more kind and generous and so sweet. And they totally treated me. They gave me the full treatment, man. They gave me, all this food and green room, and it just like amazing. Like I was just a kid. I felt like I was just a kid off the street, and I was going to get to come in and was lucky enough to get to do a bit on the
Right.
Howard Stern show. But he took it all the way, dude. Him and Robin, they both got up from their booths and came over and greeted me and hugged me and told me how thankful they were that I was there, and how excited they were that I was there. And it was just, man, it was just so beautiful. And I
That's awesome.
totally felt, I went from being nervous to feeling totally safe
Wow.
in that situation. Because like I said, I'm not the most social cat, you know what I'm saying? And I have a lot of anxiety and whatnot when it comes to stuff like that. And I'm not the best in social situations, but they were just so loving and kind and accepting. Now, once they were on the mic, they were
Yeah.
definitely Howard and Robin. You know what I'm saying? But
Sure.
I expected them to be that when I hit the door, and but not in a fake way. They weren't.
Yeah.
They were. They just knew when it was showtime and knew when it wasn't showtime.
Hmm.
And when it wasn't showtime, they couldn't have been more kind and greeting me and accepting me and making me feel like I was in a safe place. And it was just so fun to do that. And also getting to meet Simon and
Hmm.
uh, the slips my
Paula,
mind, the other
Paula and
Paul
Randy.
Abdul
Yeah.
and Randy. Yeah, getting to meet them was they were also very kind. And like 98% of the famous people you meet in this business are just as happy to be there as you are.
Sure.
And you know what I mean? And are so full of kindness and goodness, and you can just feel it, man. There's a
Hmm.
discernment, I think, in all of us, that inner voice that tells you this person is cool, man. But there's also that alarm clock that goes off in you and goes, this
Hmm.
person is an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
uh, Excuse my French, but you know what I'm
Uh-uh.
saying. And but it's very rare. I've noticed that it's very rare. Once I uh, uh, got out and about in front of famous people, I noticed that like at least 98%, maybe more, are just sweet, kind people that are just as happy to be there, like I said,
Hmm.
as you are. Um, from like J Lo and Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake and all these people. James Brown, I got to meet him. God rest his
Wow.
soul before he died. Just amazing. And James Brown, dude, is a huge influence of mine. So getting to meet him was like getting to meet Elvis.
Yeah, I mean, come on, he's iconic. It's great.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Got to meet Little Richard too. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I tried to sneak into a party at Little Richard's. He lived in the penthouse on
At the Riot.
Sunset Strip. Yes,
At the
the
Riot
Riot.
House. Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
won. I won freaking a trip to see Kiss play Dodger Stadium 20-something years ago, Halloween night, and
What?
yeah, or at the radio
Wow.
station. And we come back from the concert, and me and my buddy were going up to our room, and there's all these people, and we're like, "What's going on?" They're like, "Oh, Little Richard's having his annual Halloween party." We're like, "Oh, all right." So we went up to the penthouse, and we come walking in, we're just out of the Kiss concert, our Kiss shirts on and all. And the guards are like, "Who are you?" We're like, "We're here for the party." They're like, "Who are you? Who invited you?" We're like, "Everybody said to come up." They're like, "Yeah, get the hell out of here."
Oh man, that
Yeah,
sucks.
yeah, that's funny.
Well, we saw him. We had ordered breakfast one morning at the Riot House, and they brought the cart up to the room, and they knocked on the door, and I went to the door to answer, and when I opened the door, I was like, "Oh, come on in, sir," and he was bringing the cart in, and there just goes Little Richard, and I was like, like I was turned into Ricky Bobby, man. I didn't know what to do with my hands, and I just ran past the cart and ran out in the hallway, and I went, oh my god, dude, you're Little Richard." And he turned around and could not have been more kind and welcoming, and didn't seem bothered at all. I mean, I thought he would be pretty freaked out, because I'm one of those people. I'm hard on my sleeve. I can't hide my emotions type guy.
Love
and
it.
I just, I'm a perpetual 12-year-old, bro. Trust me. And I just was just like, oh my God, I cannot believe you're Little Richard. And he turned around, came and hugged my neck, shook my hand. He said, "How you doing, young man?" He gave me a couple of his little tracts that he was passing out about God and stuff. And he just couldn't have been more sweet and kind, just was a good, kind soul. And I was so grateful and thankful to get to meet him before he passed. God rest his soul.
It's amazing. Now, I mean, you got moments like that, man. Like these blockbuster moments, musically, your career. You then started getting like acting gigs and parts here and there, and then in 2011, you decide to leave Saliva. I remember when the news hit. I was like floored. I was like, no way, can't be. Like, what was going on in your head? I mean, that's a huge decision to make. I mean, what was going on there
Yeah.
to bring you to that point where you're like, all right, I gotta. This is no more for me.
Well, I mean, I'm not one of those people who's going to sit here and deflect blame or say that it was this or that it was, it was because of this or it was because of this. It was all 90% my fault, man. I just I'm a perpetual 12-year-old, and I have a really addictive personality, and I just wasn't ready for all those things. Like the Eagles say, everything all the time. It was life in the fast lane.
Yeah.
Every lyric of that song was true. You know what I'm saying? And I just wasn't ready. And growing up in Memphis, I had never been. I mean, I've been out a couple of times and raised
Mhm.
raised a little cane like the next guy, but I had never
Sure.
consistently had at my disposal like all these different addictive things.
Mhm.
And like you said, people just walking up going, "Hey man, here's this or this," and I just fell prey to it, man. I Plus at the time I was trying to work through all my mental health issues. I was trying to get deal with anxiety and depression and different things that I had used to in my more sober days were uh, you know a trip to my therapist and I was better.
Yeah.
But now I had went down that dark abyss, man. That a lot of people that get introduced to fame and all
Mhm.
the, like I said, the all that comes with it, um, and drugs and alcohol, man. I just went down a deep dark tunnel, man, and I couldn't find my way out. And then once you throw in, I had a doctor that was trying to straighten me out with this antidepressant and that
Yeah.
antidepressant, and
They're worse than
was
anything.
just basically yeah, he was basically using me as a crash test dummy for a lot of drugs that after I got off of them and began to investigate which drugs he had me on, they were like high powered drugs for people with like schizophrenia and
Mhm.
different things like that. Drugs that I had no business being on.
Mhm.
And it just turned me into a zombie, man. It in the end, it took everything from me, man. It that coupled with drugs and alcohol, it took everything. It took my ability to have joy. It took
Yeah.
my ability to show happiness. And I just and that coupled with the bands, of course, frustrated with me, and
Sure.
they don't want to hang around me because I just turned into a zombie. I just
Mhm.
basically turned into somebody who sat on the bus and stared at my computer, and you know and I just wasn't present in the moment. So I take the lion's share of the blame. I mean, there were things that the four of them did that were hurtful. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But there's no reason for me to sit here and go, well, this one did this and this one did that,
Yeah.
because they were just frustrated young men like I was.
Mhm.
And I can't blame them for reacting, because every action has a reaction.
Sure.
I can't blame them for the way they reacted. And plus, on top of that, my wife had gotten pregnant, um, and I had uh, two boys in a row, and I thought, well, I got to have a little girl in here somewhere. And then we found out that my wife was pregnant with a little girl. That
Mm.
was like that was that was kind of the straw that, ironically, the straw that broke the camel's back for me. Uh, was I wanted to be there for that moment,
Mhm.
um, and we were being pulled in so many different directions, and I just told the guys, I said, "Look, man, I, it was the hardest thing I ever did to this day, but I said I need to take a break. I need to stop. This is I need to get healthy. I
Mhm.
need to make some choices that could affect me being a husband and a father and a human being years and years from now."
Right.
Uh, and I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. I don't have any regrets. I believe that everything happens for a reason,
Mhm.
and I needed to stop, Bay, and get healthy and make some healthier choices for myself and for my wife and for my children, because I wanted to walk my little girls down the aisle someday to be married. I want to see them graduate college. I want to see these life moments happen. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? And I'm so glad that I made that decision. If I could turn back time, I would make the same decision today.
Wow.
I would not change that for anything in the world. It was maybe one of the best things, maybe one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. I am sorry uh, to the fans, and
Hmm.
I'm sorry. I was so sorry to disappoint the fans. I'll say that because I know that a lot of them were disappointed in me and in the decision I had made. And I do apologize for that, and I am very sorry for that. But like I said, I don't think I would be able to have the possible comeback that I'm reaching for now had it
Right.
not been for me making those choices back then.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to make a decision like that, it shows the strength in you because you realize that. I mean, how many people would just continue going on and cash in that paycheck because they would just see the dollar signs and that's all they would worry about. More importantly, that way of taking care of their family than doing it the right way, the way you did. Um, so, I mean, the strength in you as a human being to be able to realize that and actually pull the trigger and do that, I mean, is huge because not many of us could. Um,
Right.
was the band kind of expecting it, or were they blindsided when you told them that, or
I mean, like always, I think it was kind of a combo platter.
right,
I think they probably seen it coming a mile away because I was
right,
having so many problems and so many issues. Um, but at the same time, I did kind of blindside them with it, and
hmm,
they were upset. You know, at the time, we had a we were finishing up a tour, and then we had a commitment to the USO to go over to Korea, South Korea, and Japan, and do another tour, our second tour of the for the USO, and I didn't want to disappoint the armed forces because I'm a
hmm,
big supporter of the armed forces and the veterans, um,
hmm,
and just a huge advocate for them, and I would rather have died than disappointed those guys because we were already committed to it. And I said, I'm gonna fulfill my commitment to the USO in Korea and Japan. And then I said, when we come back home, I'm gonna have to pump the brakes, man, and
right,
I'm gonna have to stop for a while. And boy, it was a rough few weeks for me over there, because I had no choice but to tell them before we left. So
yeah.
it was definitely a tense couple of weeks with those guys,
Did they
them
try to
knowing that I
talk
was
you in?
needed.
Did they try to talk you out of it at all, or
No, not really, because they knew my mind was made up. And I think, they thought, maybe this is a good way to bring it in for landing, or a good way to taper off with this tour. And then, they were thinking about getting another guy to replace me. And I don't blame them for any of those things. I don't blame them for any of those decisions. I was actually grateful for the decision uh, for them to replace me and to find someone to carry on for the fans, and
hmm,
to keep that music out there and keep that music going. I'm very grateful and thankful for Bobby and Maru, who's done, I think, a really great job
yeah,
of you know of taking that seat. Um, it's got to be. I try to put myself in the other person's shoes,
hmm,
and look at it from their perspective, and always look at it through the eyes of love, man. Because somebody told me something one time. They said, "Man, we're just all walking each other home in the long run,
mm,
man.
I love
We're
that.
just all walking each other home. Isn't that great?"
I love
And
that.
I just hold on to lines like that, and I try to keep things in perspective and look at things through the eyes of love, always, always, always. And I slip, and I have a temper, and I've definitely shown my ass a couple of times, but for the lion's share of things, man, I try to look at things through the eyes of love, and I try to put myself in another man's shoes or woman's shoes, and you know, think things through like that. And I couldn't be more grateful and more thankful for how things turned out, because again, I believe everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely. Now, it was
Not to
said.
get all philosophical on you, but
I mean, honestly, like all the things that you say, and even like or talking beforehand and texting last night, I'm like, me and this dude are like, we're like the same people. It's funny. We're on this complete
absolutely.
same wavelength. Um, so when you did leave, though, it was said that you were going to pursue a Christian music career. Was that your true plan and thought?
Mhm. No, not at the time. I think uh, I think I was up for anything, because I was going into to sort of uncharted waters, and that was at the time we our management wanted to release some kind of statement. They were
Mm,
you know, pressuring me and us for some type of statement, because these people have to have a reason. You can't just
yeah.
do it because you want to go be a father and get sober and clean up your life and find your self mentally and spiritually and
Hmm.
philosophically, and all that. Can't be that reason. It's got to be
Yeah.
some other, you know, tangible reason. So I was just like, okay, man, I might go do this, and I thought about going and doing a country record. I thought about
Hmm.
um, uh, doing a blues record, being from Memphis. It that's just what came out. I am I do hold tightly to my faith. Don't get me wrong, but when I went, I actually took a meeting with one of the presidents of one of the Christian labels, and he told me, he said, Josie, he said, I'm gonna be honest with you. He said, you're not ready to come over here. He said, man, he said, there's just as many snakes and vipers and sharks over
Mm,
here as there is over there. And
right.
I was like, wow. But I appreciated his honesty, and
Hmm.
not speaking for every group or
Sure.
individual that does Christian music. I don't believe that they're all hypocrites. I'm not saying that at all. Please don't get it twisted. But I believe that he was trying to give me a warning, definitely, that there
Yeah.
was, if I thought I was going to go uh, from the frying pan to the ice box, I wasn't. I was going to go
Yeah.
from the frying pan to the fire. So
Mm,
I was glad that he was honest with me and told me that, because I wasn't ready. That was the
yeah.
truth. You know what I mean?
So when you start to now go back to just normal everyday life as a husband, father, um, how is because that's even probably just as tough mentally because you're so used to the light switch being on and then the parties and the hobnobbing and the sex, drugs, rock and roll, the fame, everything that comes with that, and then all of a sudden it's like
Right.
click, you just shut the lights off
Yeah.
and it's now you
Well,
and your couch and what do you do?
well, I think number one, seeing all that for what it was worth in the end.
Hmm.
And by the end of my journey with Saliva, I saw that fame and money and awards or gold records or platinum records or notoriety or having another hit song or girls or whatever it may be, drugs and alcohol,
Hmm.
all those things were empty shells, man.
Wow.
They had nothing for me. That all those things that I counted as valuable
Hmm.
throughout my teenagedom and throughout my 20s, and chasing that dream and just
Hmm.
you know saying I was going to do it or die trying, like 50 Cent says. And then once it was sort of for me, once I caught the rabbit, I kind of knew what to do with the rabbit for a minute, and I I petted the rabbit and I took care of it, but in the end, I ate the rabbit, dude. And it was it was not something that was hard for me to give up as far as that goes. So flipping that switch off was not a problem for me because I knew that all those things spelled unhealthy self. Being around every single one of those things individually or in concert, no pun intended, they were toxic for me at that time. And now number two, having my beautiful wife that has stood by my side for 18 years, I don't think I would be alive. As a matter of fact, I know I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for her, because she never judged me. She never looked down on me. She never cussed me or she never gave me what I deserved. She pulled me out of that slimy muck and she cleaned me off and she took care of me and she nursed me back to health, man. And to my wife Kendra, I will be forever. And she did this while raising our children, you know, and definitely me being there and being a father as well. But to see her nurse me back to health and take care of our children and just completely steer the ship for a while, I don't think I'd have made it without her. I really don't. So, and then my babies, you know, being around my son Justice, and my little girl Jordan was the daughter that we had right when I left Saliva in 2011, and then we had another daughter back to back in 2014. We had little Jolie, and I can't imagine my life without them. And they saved me just as much as anything, because the one asset that I figured out was most valuable in this life is time. And, you know, time is not like money. You can't save it. You can't put it in the bank for later. You're spending it every day, you know, every hour you're spending that time. And my children have made me appreciate love and time in a brand new way, man. And those were the things that I found that were really valuable in my life.
You know, that's like I went through a thing in life. I was in a previous marriage, and like that, I was like chasing, but I was chasing like materialistic things, and I was able to like loading up. All the cars I wanted, all the toys I wanted, collectibles, this and that, like loading up, and kind of like the same thing. But I realized what the initial get of the so-called rabbit will say, it's like you have that second of happiness that you got it, and then you blink your eyes and it's like the happiness is gone with it already. It took me a while to realize that, and then when I got out of that marriage a few years ago, I realized I don't need nothing but my happiness, and materialistic things does not bring happiness. I realized it took me a long time to realize it, but I did realize it. So
it took me a long time too, and I'm still guilty of, you know, getting a nice watch or you know, a nice pair of Jordans, and having that little bump, we'll call it, of good feelings. But it's like you said, it's fleeting and it's gone in a second.
Absolutely. Did you as you were going through that, especially initially, did you struggle with like depression at all about it, or you were really solid with everything going on, and you saw the course you needed to take?
Well, it was, again, a combo platter. I saw the course that I needed to take, and I knew that I was going to, knowing myself, again, I'm a perpetual 12-year-old, so I have to take the hardest road possible. Because if I take the easy road over here, or this thing that's known to work over here that makes it a
Right.
little easier, I won't appreciate it, and I won't covet it. So I have to do the hardest way possible. So when I first got home, I was like, I'm not taking this medicine anymore. I threw away bottle after bottle of different high powered stuff that I had no business. After, like I said, after upon investigating it, had no business being on. I threw all this stuff in the garbage, and man, I kind of got what I bargained for, because the next 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, were just, I mean, you talk about depression, man. Like, coming off all that medicine
Yeah.
will really take you on a it'll really introduce you to depression and anxiety. And
Yeah.
but I knew that going in, and I just sucked it up, and I just powered my way through it. I said, it's going to get better. If I can just last another 24 hours, it's going to get better, and I'm going to feel better. And I just fought my way through it one day at a time, man. And once that 3 weeks or 4 weeks was over with, I began to sort of come out of the shadows a little bit, and come out of that abyss that black hole that I had been lost in for so long. I started to come out of the smoke and the haze that I was in, and then I started to feel better, and started spending more time with my wife and my kids, and taking my kids to the park, and taking them for pizza, and taking them bowling, and taking them skating, and different things like that. What was just That's where the joy came from, and that's when I realized the difference. For me, the difference in happiness and joy.
Yeah.
Now, happiness is when I buy the new Jordan 1s that come out, that I have coveted so much. That's happiness. When I get that box and I open them up and I first put them on, and I'm like, yes, I've been waiting on these. Got them. That's happiness. But when I hold my daughter in my arms, and she puts her arms around my neck, and she squeezes me and says, Papa, I love you so much, that's joy.
Yeah.
That is the kind of lasting feeling that I was always looking for. And I've found it in my family and my faith and my children.
It's amazing. God bless you, man, that you found it. Really.
God bless you, brother.
So while you are in your retirement, we'll call it, um, all your people from the music business, friends that you made over that prior 15 years of fame, do you hear from anybody, or does the phone go radio silent?
Well, I mean, I've stayed in touch with a lot of my friends. There's a producer named Malcolm Springer that I'm very dear friends with, from back in Memphis, that lives in Nashville now. Me and Elvis Baskett, another producer, that I'm actually planning on working with. He did the Back Into Your System album with us, with Bob Marlette,
Okay.
and kept in touch with him, and kept in touch with my friends in Corn, and kept in touch with my friends in Breaking Benjamin, and my friends in Shinedown. Dear friends with Zach Myers. Basically watched him grow up in Memphis, and been dear friends with him for years and years and years. So, I tried to keep in touch with them as best I could when they came through town, taking the kids or the wife to a concert,
Sure.
things like that. But on this time, when I was planning, when I knew I was planning to come back and do music again. Um, right as I was sort of gearing up to do this, we lost our son to COVID. In
Sorry.
Thank you. And on May 22nd of 2021, we lost our son Cody, 29 years old, uh, and we lost him in 12 days. He got sick, and 12 days later he passed. And it just it was definitely something that is the most horrible thing I've ever been through in
Sure.
my adult life. I can't describe to you uh, the feeling of losing a child. Is something no parent should ever have to go through.
Hmm.
Um, and I was just so devastated for a long time after that, for months. And but I had a dream not too long after he passed, about 4 months after he passed, and I was in the dream. I was laying on the mat in like a wrestling ring or a boxing
Okay.
ring, and I felt blood coming out of my nose and my mouth, and I was like, oh my gosh! I was like, trying to find something to wipe my nose, but I had these boxing gloves on, and I was like wiping, and I saw blood on the gloves, and I felt somebody horse collar me from my shirt from the back, and they pulled me backwards, and I felt this breath in my right ear, and I heard my son's voice say, "Dad, you got to get up. Come on, Pops, you got to get up. Come on,
Wow.
Pops, get up. You got to get up. Come on, get up. You got to get up, Dad." And when I just wanted so badly just to turn around and look at him, and when I turned around, I woke up. But in my spirit, man, I knew that was my child. Number one, letting me know that everything was all right. And number two, he was telling me, I want you to get up. I would want you to get up and fight. I would want you to get up and pick up your sword and keep fighting and do what you love and do what you were put on this planet to do. And from that moment forward, I just took that, you know, as an edict, and I have gotten back up off the mat and cleaned myself off and pick up my sword, and I'm ready to fight.
First off, that almost made me cry. And my fiance kept telling me, because she knew how excited I was to talk to you. She's like, "You're going to cry at some point." So very close to tears right now for that moment. Um, and I'm going to tell you God's honest truth. When your son passed away, we started hearing the rumblings of you possibly coming back, and I thought to myself, man, I hope this doesn't push him down. I hope this doesn't put him in the wrong direction. No, don't you cry now, please.
It's just, it's just missing him. That's so hard. You know what I mean?
Sure. Have you? I can imagine the music you're working on is about him.
Every bit of it, every song, even if the subject matter veers to the left or right, it's ultimately all. Every song is about my son.
Wow. How? Because many people I've interviewed
And
over the years.
I see like dragonflies.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, like, I've talked,
No, I
many
was just
people.
saying.
Are we? Maybe we're delayed or something. I don't know. You talk, Josie, please.
I think we got a delay. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead. You talk, please.
No, I was just going to say, since he passed, my friend Tony West is a singer out in Los Angeles, and he told me, he said, "You're going to see things that are not used to seeing. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, you're going to see things like butterflies and dragonflies, and you're going to see a lot of red-breasted robins.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, come on, dog. And he was like, you just watch. And
Mm-hmm.
he is totally right. As a matter of fact, when I was talking to you, one landed right in front of my car and just looked right at me and then flew away. And I was like, wow, man, it's crazy. It happens every day, all day long. He couldn't have been more correct.
It's so true. Like I notice them all because I've lost both my parents at a young age and my sister a few years
I'm so
back. Like
sorry.
most of the people in my life, like I've just been surrounded by it. But every time I see him so much now, and I'm just like, which one of you is it? Because it's one of them. you know. um. So when you do start now approaching this comeback, what was there any particular reason or that you felt like, all right, it's finally the right time for me to do this?
Well, again, I think it's a combination of things. Wanting to come back, um, having that love of music, and over the years, what I call the radio in my head has never stopped
Sure.
playing. And I've probably got 3 albums worth of song ideas because since 2011 and 12 and so forth, I've had idea after idea after idea for songs. I mean, I had one this morning with you about technology and time zones. And anytime I have those little ideas, I'll jot them down and put them in my phone or jot them down in my notebook or something like that. And um, like I said, I've got probably 2 or 3 albums worth of ideas. But it's just that music is my first love. You know what I mean? It's the first thing I ever heard. I remember one time when I was 5. I think I was 3 or 4 years old, and my aunt took me to uh, the backyard, and she put me up on the picnic table, and she was standing beside me, and someone was taking pictures of us. And I remember the old 70s looking camera, and I
hmm
remember the ice cube looking things that they were
Right,
plugging
right.
into the top of it. And I
Yep.
remember the explosion of the flash, and how it kind of blinded me for a second. And I remember at that moment, I remember this little transistor radio hanging in my grandmother's backyard. And I remember hearing, I shot the sheriff, but I didn't shoot the dead. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. And I remember the very second that I fell in love with music. And
Wow.
all it took was hearing that chorus one time. And I was like, what is that? And that began my pursuit full on 100 miles an hour towards music, man. Absolutely fell deeply, deeply lost in love with music.
For me, it was Tony Orlando and Dawn. Tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree. I could still
I
picture
remember
that.
that.
I could still picture that 45 spinning on
Tie
this
a
little Mickey
yellow
Mouse.
ribbon around the
Yeah.
oak tree. I remember
Oh boy.
that.
So when you start now, when you came out on social media, all of a sudden the social medias start popping up. You put that video out with your family. I was like, oh yeah, here we go, game on. My boy is back. I'm so freaking excited. But then, I mean, to basically have been, I'm going to say, my opinion, you've been in hiding for about 10 years because truth, truth be known, I've searched for your ass many times in the last 10 years trying to find you to be able to do an interview. I'm like, He's got no social media. There's no nothing. Where, like, I want to talk to this dude. I want to know what he's doing, what's going on, where is he? Um, so now, like, you've been starting to, you're coming to Nashville recording, and you've been starting to get do these little on stage hellos with you're out there with Poison, you're out there with your friends Shine Down and Jelly Roll and doing all these things. I mean, that's got to be pretty mind blowing.
I think I lost you for a second.
Oh no, we delayed. Can you hear me? Crap, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
It was like popping out for a second.
So you started coming back with you doing appearances with, you go on stage with Poison, you do Shine Down with Jelly Roll, you're doing stuff like that. How, and that's not like, oh, I'm going up in front of a club now. You're going in front of 50,000 people or whatever. How, it's welcome back.
Yeah, man, it's like I just couldn't feel. It's given me a new appreciation for it. It's almost like, kind of, the only thing I can compare it to is like it's my church. It gives me that overwhelming feeling that only performing can. And at first, of course, I was a little nervous, and I, it's intimidating, and you want to look your best and feel your best. I've spent the last 6 months since I kind of knew Blue Ridge was coming, was going to get up with Saliva and do 3 songs. From that moment, I found out about 5 or 6 months ago. So I had 5 or 6 months to go, okay, I'm hitting the gym every day. I'm about to, and it's never been my choice in my life. Like I said, I'm a rebellious little 12-year-old. So when I was in Saliva, they would always get me a personal trainer, and they would always make me go to the gym, and they would try to make me do this and make me do that. And of course, being a young idiot that I was, I rebelled against every bit of it, but now I believe it was meant to be, because it was my choice to get healthier. It was my choice to eat better. It was my choice to pass that down to my children and to teach them that there's a healthier way to eat and a healthier way to survive, and that we can still have all the delicious food that we had, just in different times and patterns and ways. And that, coupled with just busting my ass in the gym, like I said earlier, I have to take the hard way. Or, people ask me all the time, what's your secret? Somebody actually said, Josie Scott's back on drugs. I was like, yeah, I think I'd be a little more pale and a little more gaunt than I look now if I was on drugs. But I thought that was pretty hilarious. But I just had, like I said earlier, Bay, I have to take the hard road, dude, because I have to make myself appreciate it. You know what I mean? I've not only tried to be a good parent to my children, I try to be a good parent to myself. And being a good parent to myself is dragging my ass to that gym every day and putting in that work. You know what I'm saying? And, like The Rock says, and Mark Wahlberg says, after you put that hour in, or after you put that hour or 2 in every morning, you got the rest of the day to do whatever you want.
That's it. So true. You need to kick my ass to get my ass back in the gym.
Well, I'm just such an addictive personality. I've gotten addicted to it now. My wife will tell you, if I don't get my 6 to 8 miles in every day, I feel like I haven't brushed my teeth or something. I feel gross.
So
I got
how
to get
was
in there and hit that. You know, what's that?
how was Blue Ridge getting back up on stage with Saliva?
Oh man, dude, just like I said, it was like church, man. Getting to get up there in front of all those thousands and thousands and thousands of people and hearing them sing the lyrics back to me all at once, man. Like you said, it's just like flipping the light switch back on.
Mm-hmm. So, in the 10 years that you have been gone from the music business, the business has changed, shall we say. Um, we have this world now of
Oh yeah.
streaming, Spotify, and all this fun stuff. What's your thoughts and opinion on all that stuff?
Well, uh, one of my idols, Billy Corgan, said back in the '90s. He said, "Music will someday be free," um, and I don't, I don't think you can stop that. I don't, I'm not an advocate uh, for any of it, really. Uh, I'm an advocate for getting music in people's hands, and I don't care how. If it's free, then so be it. If it's streaming and they pay for it, so be it. If it's records, so be it. You know what I mean? If it's vinyl, so be it. You know, there's people that collect vinyl now, which I think is extraordinary, and vinyl is what made me want to do this in the first place. Going over to this kid named Kevin Brock. He was like the black sheep of the family, and I used to go over to his house when my dad was a preacher, and his dad was the assistant pastor, and I used to go over to his house, and he was like, I think like 5 or 6 years older than me. He was like 11 or 12, and I was like 5 or 6, and I used to just live to run over to his house and go in his bedroom, and he had like fishnets and lava lamps and Kiss posters and Ted Nugent posters and like Boston's a huge thing of Boston's album cover on his wall and Dark Side of the Moon and all these things that I'd never been exposed to. And I remember pulling his he had an old wooden Peaches Records crate. I don't know if you remember Peaches Records back in the day.
No.
And I would pull the wooden. I guess it's a Tennessee thing. I was pulling
Yeah.
the crates of records out, and I would go through his crates. And I remember pulling up Kiss Destroyer, and I would just sit there and just stare at it. And I was like, I don't even know. I was like, Kevin, I don't know what this is, but whatever this is, that's what I want to be when I grow up. Because that's what all the kids were saying. They're like, I want to be Superman, or I want to be a lawyer, or I want to be a doctor. I was like, I want to be Ace Frehley, dude.
Oh man, that's awesome. So you're working on new music. Are you working on a full album, singles? What's the plan musically?
Well, I have a single that I'm working on right now called Evil Knievel that I plan on dropping really soon.
We got to talk. We got to talk. Evil Knievel is my number one all-time hero.
No way, bro.
Dude,
that was totally meant to be.
I've done many shows, like specials about Evil Knievel, where I've had his manager, his crew, the guy that runs the whole Evil Knievel Enterprises on now, and I've interviewed Robbie too. Like, I'm an Evil Knievel lunatic. Go ahead, tell me about this.
Well, man, wait till you hear this song, dude. I mean, I don't mean to brag, but it's like, it's sort of getting back to my roots, like getting back to my main influences that started it all, like back in 1997, 98, 99, back in those years. Getting back to the things that first influenced me, like James Brown and like Beastie Boys, Rage Against the Machine, Run DMC, things like this. And it's basically like, it's like a click click boom, but it's it's got this monster hook like because I'm evil. Dun, 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 dun. Evil Knievel. And it's got
Wow,
these
can't wait.
backup singers. I got backup singers singing. I've always wanted to have backup singers like Elvis, the 3 female backup singers, and it sounds pretty dope, man. It's pretty monstrous. It's gonna be cool. You'll dig it, especially being a fan of Evil Knievel. And it sort of tips its hat to that generation. You know, me being a Gen Xer and growing up with Evil Knievel and being such a huge fan of his and watching him do his jumps. And I actually got the idea from watching Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle said that he smoked some weed one time with some rappers, and he said, "I'm used to weed, but I've never smoked rapper weed." So he said, after I smoked this rapper weed, I had to go on stage in Detroit. And he said, I went on stage and totally bombed. And he goes, after I bombed, everybody kept chanting, "We want our money back. We want our money back." And he said, this lady stood up and said, "F you, Dave Chappelle. I took off work for this. I came here just to see you, and you suck." And then she joined in the chant, "We want our money back." And he like had a moment of clarity and came out of the hide. He goes, "Oh, good people of Detroit, I'm so sorry. I smoked some rapper weed and I'm unable to do the show, but I just want to let you know I'll never give you your motherfucking money back." He said, "I'm like evil." He said, "I'm like Evil Knievel, baby. I get paid for the jump."
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So I was like, "Oh snap!" So I just kept hearing this chorus in my head going, "Evil Knievel, I get paid for the jump. I get paid for Evil Knievel. Get paid for the jump." I was like, "Oh, I'm writing that. That's tight." And so I went right in the studio with my buddy Malcolm Springer in Nashville, and we started hashing it out, chopping it up. And I've pretty much got it done. I've got to put some like finishing touches on it, and I'm gonna drop that single pretty soon, no matter what. But I do, to answer your question. Sorry, sort of took the long way around here.
All right.
But I do plan on dropping a full album, because the number one thing that the fans say is, "When you gonna drop some new music? When you coming out with something new?" You know what I mean? So, and I want to take the fans back to the sort of true seed of where all this came from. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like my 16-year-old son Justice tells me all the time. He goes, "My favorite record of every band that I like is always their first record." So I want to get back to that hungry young man that was before fame and before money and before drugs and alcohol and before all those things. And Evil Knievel just took me right back there, man. It just like took the clock and went, and I was like,
awesome.
Took me right back to that beautiful place, man.
Quick Evil Knievel story I got to tell you. One of the guys in his crew that I interviewed, he would tell the story when Evil was in prison. He would drive every day because Evil was on work release. So he would drive and pick Evil up from prison from work release, and then they started organizing limos to pick up all the other prisoners on work release. So he would take them all. He would take them all by limo to their jobs every day, and then drop them off. And yeah, the prison shut that down quick, and Evil got in a lot of trouble. Yeah.
Dude, that is awesome.
He was a true.
I never knew he went to prison.
Yeah, a guy, one of his insiders wrote a tell-all book about him, and basically called him out and said he was not a nice guy. And Evil went and caught up with the guy with a baseball bat and beat him.
Oh snap! Wow, yeah. I didn't know that.
And when he went to court for it, he told the judge. Crazy. He said, "Judge, if I have the opportunity, I'll do it again. Give me my punishment."
Wow. Wow.
He's no
I didn't
joke.
know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, all right, Josie, you just announced more tour dates the other day. I know you got more dates lined up that you haven't announced yet. Are you all ready for the road? Are you ready to do this?
Yeah, man, we're ready to go out and do it. I got my son, Dynamite DeLone, playing rhythm guitar for me, and Sam Bam Colton playing lead guitar from Faster Pussycat and Dorothy,
Okay.
and uh, uh, got Mark Dalbeth from Australia. He lives in Los Angeles now. He's my bass player. I'm so proud of him. Mark is an amazing musician, uh, and then I got Tasha Jones on drums. I always have wanted a female Tommy Lee, and God finally gave me one. So I'm so grateful and excited to have her on board. And like I said, Sam Bam Colton is already a famous musician, and I just love him. It's such a sweetheart of a man, such a good soul, and Mark Mark Dalbeth as well, and my son Dynamite Dillon is one of the sweetest boys I've ever known. I have had the privilege of being his dad since he was about 3 years old,
Wow.
and just so excited to go out and play, man. We've done a couple of dates. We just played North Dakota, and we just played Durant, Oklahoma. So we're looking forward. And we played Tulsa too. So we're looking forward to. We had a couple warm up gigs, and we're ready to hit it.
Awesome. A Nashville gig? Come on.
Oh, I'm sure there'll be a Nashville gig coming up. They're announcing dates as we speak, so I'm sure we'll be coming through Nash Vegas.
Absolutely. Josie, man, I got to tell you, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for opening up and telling all the stories and the truth. I mean, the honesty of everything. And um, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you for having me.
And hey, you got my
Thank,
number now.
thank you for
Keep in
having me,
touch.
brother. Y'all, yes, sir. And we're vampires, so we can talk anytime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I expect that. So, best place to go, josiescott.com. Everybody will keep up to date for you there and get the news and updates and the social medias. He's on there. He's not. Do you like social media since you've been, again, part of the change in the world now?
Yeah, you can catch me on Facebook under Josie Scott, and you can catch me on Twitter on Josie Scott Music. You can catch me on Instagram at Josie Scott, and like you said, josiescott.com.
Awesome. Dude, again, thank you so much. We talked for over an hour. I know you got a lot to do. You're in the parking lot. Go home. Go continue your day.
Oh man, thank you so much, Bay. I appreciate it. Thank you,
Thank,
Bay.
thank you, man. I look forward to meeting you when you come back to Nashville.
Heck yeah, let's do dinner, dude. Let's do it.
Absolutely.